My name is Gabriella, and for as long as I can remember, my family has celebrated everything except me. For years, I stood in the background, playing the role of the dutiful daughter, the silent observer of my own life. But today, everything changes. This is the story of how my family forgot my birthday year after year, and how I finally decided to stop being invisible. I've spent 3 decades quietly observing as my family celebrated everything that wasn't me. My birthday, one of the simplest days a family can mark, was always overlooked, like I was nothing more than a shadow in the background of their perfect lives. Every year they seemed to forget, and I, like clockwork, swallowed the sting and kept going. But on my 48th birthday, the silence of my house felt like an echo of everything that had been taken from me. The faint purring of my cat was the only sound as I stared at the envelope in my hands. Thick, cream-colored paper with gold embossing, and the raised letters announcing my parents' 50th wedding anniversary celebration. The date couldn't have been more fitting, I thought. Their celebration, their love, their perfect family, all of it arrived on my birthday again. It was as if they had taken my day and wrapped it up in the same bow they'd always used to ignore me. My daughter Paisley's voice broke the quiet, her sudden apology tearing through the weight of the moment. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I just remembered what day it is." She rushed to hug me, her long dark hair brushing my face. It should have been comforting, but instead, it only reminded me how the world around me, even my daughter, was always tangled in the chaos of everyone else's lives but my own. "I was so caught up with finals, she began. "It's okay, sweetheart," I interrupted, but we both knew it wasn't. "You're here now." She pulled back, and her gaze landed on the invitation in my hand. "Is that the anniversary invitation?" "Yes," I forced a smile. "The big 50. "How fitting," I added, a bitter chuckle escaping my lips. "They send it on my birthday again." Paisley's face darkened as she read the fine print. "Are they serious? They want you to give a speech again?" She shook her head in disbelief. "After they've forgotten your birthday for what? 30 years now." "But who's counting?" I quipped, trying to laugh it off, but the sound caught in my throat. The phone rang, and we both jumped. My mother's name flashed on the screen, but I let it ring. I didn't need to talk to her. Not right now. "Mom's calling to discuss the anniversary," Paisley said, her tone bitter. "You're really going to do this again?" I nodded, my finger hovering over the phone, but I let it ring again. I didn't want to be drawn into their drama today. I had enough on my plate. Paisley squeezed my hand. "Come on, let's go out. Just the two of us. Let them wait. Let them deal with it for once." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. This time with a text from Trey, my brother. "Mom's trying to reach you. Important anniversary planning meeting tonight. Don't be difficult." I showed Paisley the message, and she rolled her eyes. "Don't be difficult. That's rich coming from the brother who forgot to invite you to his own wedding rehearsal dinner," she snapped. "He didn't forget," I corrected her. "He assumed I wouldn't want to come because I was busy writing my little stories." Paisley made a disgusted noise. "The whole family's just one big joke." The phone rang a third time. My father this time, calling from a different number. 3 calls in 5 minutes. Must be urgent anniversary business, I thought. But I ignored it. I didn't need to be a part of it. Not today. I stared at the invitation again, the gold lettering mocking me, and the same request I had received every year for the last 15 years. "Please give the anniversary toast." I had always complied, always stood up in front of the family, speaking about my parents' enduring love while silently swallowing the bitter truth of my own invisibility. For once, though, I didn't feel like doing it. Paisley squeezed my hand again. "Mom, you don't have to do this anymore." And in that moment, something inside me shifted. It felt like a key turning in a long rusted lock. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the fierce protectiveness in her eyes. She wasn't just my daughter, she was my ally. She understood, and for the first time in years, I realized I didn't have to keep pretending for them. "You're right," I whispered slowly, a plan starting to form in my mind. "Maybe I don't." I picked up the invitation, running my thumb over my mother's perfect scripted demands. Time for a different kind of story, I thought. This year, things were going to change. "Are you thinking what I think you're thinking?" Paisley asked, her voice lighter than I'd heard it in a long time. I think it's time to write a new ending, I said with a small smile. My phone buzzed once more. Another text from Trey. Meeting starts at 7. Don't make Mom wait. I showed Paisley the message. We exchanged a glance, and this time, I wasn't going to respond. We grabbed our coats. It was time to stop being invisible. Paisley and I didn't talk much on our way out. The city streets were alive with the pulse of traffic, but all I could focus on was the letter in my hand. The anniversary invitation had become more than just a simple request. It had become a symbol of everything I had tolerated for far too long. My family's expectations, their demands, their refusal to acknowledge me beyond the role they had assigned me, it was all wrapped up in that thick envelope. Are you really going to skip it? Paisley asked, breaking the silence as we sat down at a cafe. Her voice was soft but laced with the kind of understanding that only a child could have after watching their mother bend under the weight of family obligations for so many years. The speech? The toast? Everything? Why not? I replied, stirring my coffee absently. I've done it for 15 years, Paisley. Every year I stand up, tell some beautiful story about their undying love, and then swallow my own bitter truth. But this time, I think it's time for a new kind of truth. Paisley's eyes widened as if she were seeing me in a new light. What truth are you thinking of? I took a deep breath, letting the cool air fill my lungs. For the first time, I allowed myself to truly consider my own story, the one I'd ignored for so long in favor of everyone else's. I think it's time for them to see me. Really see me, not just the daughter who has to play the part, but the person who's been invisible all these years. It's time for them to know what it feels like to be forgotten. She nodded slowly, and a small smile tugged at the corner of her lips. This is about more than just the anniversary speech, isn't it? Yes, I said, feeling a shift within myself. It's about everything. It's about the fact that they've never truly seen me, that I've spent my whole life being overlooked, waiting for them to recognize me, and now I'm done waiting. The thought was both liberating and terrifying. The idea of confronting my family, of finally speaking the truth they had always ignored, made my heart race. But I couldn't ignore the excitement bubbling inside me. For the first time, I was no longer the background character in my family's story. I was the author of my own narrative. We spent the rest of the day together, planning what I would do next. The more we talked, the clearer my path became. I would write my story, not just for myself, but for the world to hear. The art of invisibility would be the story of my life, the years of silence, of erasure, and of finally stepping into the light. That evening, I sat down at my desk, the faint hum of the city outside my window, and began to write. Every word that poured from me felt like a weight lifting. The truth was coming out, and I no longer felt the need to hide. But the messages kept coming. My phone buzzed with text after text. Mom is upset, Trey texted. She wants you to call her back. Then came another one from Marlo. What's going on? Mom says you're being difficult. Don't make this harder than it already is. And yet, I didn't call back. I didn't care about their anger, their disappointment. For once, it wasn't about them. It was about me. As I worked on the first chapter of my memoir, a realization hit me like a freight train. I had been invisible for so long because I had allowed it. I had let them treat me like an afterthought, like a mere prop in their perfect family play. But not anymore. This book, this moment, was my declaration of independence. A soft knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. I looked up to see Paisley standing there, holding a small box of takeout. Her eyes were filled with a mixture of pride and anticipation. She knew what I was about to do, and for the first time, I wasn't alone in this. She was with me every step of the way. I've been thinking, she said as she set the box down on my desk. What if you don't just write the truth in your book? What if you show it to them? Let them read it before the anniversary. I blinked, surprised by the idea. You want me to show them? Paisley shrugged. Why not? They need to know, and if they're going to keep pretending, at least they should know what they're pretending about. I didn't answer immediately. The thought was radical, terrifying, and yet somehow it felt right. I think you're right, I said finally, the words feeling heavier than I expected. Maybe it's time they face the truth. We spent the next few hours working together, editing the chapters and adding the final touches. Every time I read a passage, I felt more empowered. This was my voice. These were my words. And for once, they weren't hidden away. They were out in the world where they belonged. The next morning, as I sat at my desk, looking at the manuscript in front of me, I made the decision. I would send it to them. I would let them read it, see the truth of how I had lived in their shadows for so long. And with that decision, the last vestiges of my fear fell away. This was my time. The phone buzzed again. Another message from my mother. Gabriella, we need to discuss the anniversary. Call me back immediately. But I didn't call back. Instead, I picked up my phone and texted her back. I'm not coming to the meeting tonight. You'll have to handle it without me. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty. The day stretched on as I finished the final draft of my memoir, The Art of Invisibility, a title I had crafted to capture every moment of feeling unseen, overlooked, and neglected. As I typed the last few words, I felt the weight of years of silence finally lifting from my shoulders. My life, my truth, was no longer hidden in the shadows of family gatherings, waiting to be acknowledged. It was out there, on paper, and nothing would ever be the same. Paisley was right by my side, reading over my shoulder and helping me fine-tune the details. She was more than my daughter. She was my partner in this. She understood what I had been through, what I had endured all these years. Her support was unwavering, and it gave me the courage to continue. Do you think they'll actually read it? She asked, her voice filled with concern. I paused, my fingers hovering above the keyboard. It was a question that had haunted me since I made the decision to write the book. Would they even care? Would they finally see me for who I was, who I had always been? Or would they dismiss it as another one of my attempts at seeking attention? I don't know, I said, feeling a twinge of doubt. But they will have to face it, whether they like it or not. I hit send, the manuscript now on its way to my family. The silence that followed felt louder than any conversation could have been. It was the calm before the storm, and I wasn't sure what would come next. But one thing was clear. I had taken the first step toward liberation, and there was no going back. The phone buzzed again. A text from Trey. Mom is freaking out. She's trying to reach you. Then another message from Marlo. You can't do this, Gabriella. It's going too far. The familiar pushback had begun, and I could feel the old guilt creeping in. But I refused to let it control me this time. I had spent too many years hiding my pain, my truth, for the sake of keeping the peace. Now I would let them feel the weight of their neglect. Paisley noticed my hesitation and put a reassuring hand on my shoulder. You're doing the right thing, Mom. You're finally doing it for you. I smiled at her, grateful for her unwavering belief in me. Thank you, I whispered, knowing that her support was what had given me the strength to write what I had written. I think I'm finally ready to face them. The anniversary was approaching, and the family was in a frenzy, trying to finalize the details of the celebration. My mother, in her usual way, had begun to create an illusion of perfection, as though everything was in order. But behind the scenes, cracks were beginning to show. The invitation had been sent to everyone, the seating arrangements had been made, and the speeches were being finalized, but something was missing. And that something, I realized, was me. I wasn't going to be the invisible daughter in the background anymore. I wasn't going to smile and pretend everything was fine while they carried on with their perfect facade. As the day of the anniversary arrived, I felt a surge of anxiety and excitement. I had already made my decision. I wasn't going to the party. I wasn't going to play my usual role of the dutiful daughter, the one who smiled through the hurt and gave the anniversary toast year after year. No, this time, I was going to be somewhere else, somewhere they wouldn't expect me. I glanced at the invitation one last time, the familiar gold script mocking me as it sat on the counter. Please give the anniversary toast. It was as though they had no idea that this year, the toast would not come from me. They would have to learn to do without it. They would have to learn what it felt like to be the one left behind. Paisley and I spent the day together, not focusing on the anniversary or the drama that was brewing. It felt like we were the only ones who truly understood the importance of what was happening. The rest of the family, consumed by their own need for perfection, didn't realize the depth of what they were about to lose. Around dinner time, the phone rang. I didn't have to look to know who it was. My mother's name flashed on the screen, and for a moment, I considered answering. But then I remembered everything that had led up to this point, the years of ignoring my own needs, my own identity, and I couldn't bring myself to pick up. "I'm not answering it," I said firmly, setting the phone down. Paisley nodded in understanding. "You've got this, Mom. Whatever happens, you've already won. You've stopped letting them define who you are." Her words echoed in my mind as I stood up and walked toward my desk. The manuscript of my memoir sat there, waiting to be published. It felt like a declaration of independence, a testament to everything I had fought for. The story was finally mine to tell, and no one would ever take that from me again. The phone buzzed again. A message from Trey. "Mom says you're ruining everything. She's not going to forgive you for this." I stared at the message for a moment, then deleted it. For the first time in years, I felt at peace. The night of the anniversary party arrived, and the storm of texts and calls from my family had only intensified. My phone buzzed with notifications. Mom's name, Trey's, even Marlowe's. I ignored them all. I had made my choice, and nothing could change that now. Paisley and I drove to my parents' house, the air thick with anticipation. The streets outside were lined with luxury cars, the kind of cars that belong to the people who always seem to be in the spotlight. Inside, the house was alive with chatter, laughter, and the clinking of glasses, as though everything were perfect. As we entered through the side door, I felt the familiar twinge of being the outsider in my own family, but this time, it didn't sting. It was liberating. "Mom," Paisley said, her voice almost a whisper, "are you sure about this?" I gave her a nod, feeling a strange calm wash over me. "Yes, I'm sure." We slipped quietly through the halls of the house, unnoticed by the guests who were lost in their own conversations. The lavish decor, the society photographers, the perfectly curated guest list, it all felt like a play, a performance of love, of family, of tradition. But none of it was real. It was a facade, built on the lies that had kept me hidden for so long. As we made our way to the gift table, I noticed my book, The Art of Invisibility, sitting prominently among the gifts. The sight of it, wrapped in elegant black leather, gave me a sense of power I hadn't felt before. This was my moment. My story was on display, in front of everyone who had ignored me for decades. "Do you think they'll actually open it?" Paisley asked, glancing at the package. "I don't care," I replied, my voice steady. "They'll have to." The atmosphere in the room shifted when I entered. The moment I appeared in the doorway, everything seemed to freeze. Conversation stopped, the clink of glasses silenced, and then the collective eyes of the family turned toward me. I could see the confusion, the shock, the disbelief in their faces. My mother's voice faltered as she saw me approach. "Gabriella." Her words trailed off, and she gripped her champagne glass tightly, her knuckles white. She wasn't expecting this. I smiled, but it wasn't the smile I had always worn for them. It was different now. "I couldn't miss it, could I?" I said, my voice carrying through the room. "After all, isn't that what family does? Shows up?" The room fell silent. The weight of my words hung heavy in the air as I walked toward the gift table and unwrapped my book. Their eyes followed me, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel invisible. I felt illuminated. I was the center of attention now, and it wasn't because I had conformed to their expectations. It was because I had chosen to stand in my truth. "I thought you might want to hear what I wrote in the dedication," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. My mother's face went pale as I opened the book, the gold lettering shining in the dim light of the room. I could see her anxiety, her need to maintain control slipping through the cracks. "To my mother," I began, my voice steady, "who taught me that being invisible doesn't mean you don't exist. It just means you have to shine brighter to be seen." I paused, letting the words sink in, knowing that every pair of eyes in the room was on me. My mother's hands trembled as she took the book from me, but she didn't say a word. She couldn't. The truth was too raw, too real for her to process. For the first time in my life, I felt her presence shift. She could no longer ignore me. "Happy anniversary, Mother. I hope you finally see what I've been trying to show you all these years." The room was still, the silence deafening. I could hear the faint sound of the string quartet in the background, but even that seemed muted. There was no clinking of glasses, no polite murmurs of small talk. Everyone was waiting, waiting for my mother to react, to say something, anything. And then she did. She opened the book, her fingers trembling as she flipped through the pages, scanning the words I had written. Her face, which had been carefully composed for so long, finally showed the cracks, the vulnerability, the realization of what she had done. But she didn't speak, not immediately. Instead, she glanced up at me, her eyes filled with a mix of disbelief and something else, something I couldn't quite name. "Well," she said finally, her voice shaky, "I suppose we'll need to rework the seating chart again." Her words, so hollow and dismissive, couldn't erase the moment that had just unfolded. The mask she had worn for so many years was slipping, and there was no going back. I looked at my father, who had been standing quietly in the background, observing it all. He finally spoke, his voice breaking the silence. "We should take this somewhere private," he suggested, his eyes flicking nervously between my mother and me. "No," I said firmly, my voice stronger than it had ever been. "We've had enough privacy, enough secrets, enough pretending." The tension in the room was palpable as I turned to face the guests, who were all still watching, waiting for the next move. I could see the discomfort in their eyes, the unease that comes with the truth when it's finally revealed. "Don't tell them how you all forgot my college graduation," I said, my voice cutting through the thick air. "Or how you announced Trey's engagement at family dinner right after I told you about my book deal. You know, that's nice, dear, but wait until you hear Trey's news." The silence that followed was deafening. The truth hung in the air like a storm waiting to break, and there was no way to take it back. "Enough," my mother snapped, slamming the book shut, her voice rising. "This is our anniversary celebration, not your therapy session." I smiled coldly. "Actually, it's both." "Because guess what, Grandma?" I said, turning to face her. "Your perfect family image is hurting everyone, not just me." I looked at my daughter, standing beside me, her gaze steady and unwavering. Paisley had always known the truth, and now so did everyone else. "Why do you think I never brought my kids to family events?" Paisley asked, her voice ringing out with the clarity of someone who had witnessed it all. "Because I didn't want them learning that love is conditional, that you have to perform like trained seals to earn your place in the family." A murmur rippled through the guests, and I saw the governor's wife leaning in, whispering to her husband. The cameras clicked rapidly, capturing every moment. And for the first time, I didn't care. The world was finally seeing the truth. They were all witnessing the unraveling of a family, and I was no longer the invisible one. As the evening wore on, the guests resumed their conversations, but it wasn't the same. The perfect facade had cracked, and the pieces were scattered across the room. The string quartet played again, but the music no longer sounded as sweet. My mother, for the first time in my life, finally saw me. Not just as a daughter, but as a person, someone with a voice, with a story that mattered. And that, more than any speech, any toast, any family tradition, felt like the greatest success of all.